Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be ranting about stuff you may have also seen me ranting about over on Instagram. If you want to see more of those rants, go follow me over there. It's cool. I'm also on TikTok and Twitch, and you can find me there. That's it. I deleted Twitter. It was amazing. Oh, it felt so good to do that. Twitter's been gone for months now, and it's the best thing I've ever done. Ranting. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the whole not all men crap. And it really is crap. It absolutely is. I'm out of patience. I'm not going to hold back in this video. I'm not going to try and be polite. I'm just going to share my feelings with you. That said, it is worth mentioning a quick note before we start. It's important to mention and understand and realize and remember that violence happens against all kinds of people all of the time, and also that violence is perpetrated by all kinds of people all of the time. It's important to note that many non-binary people are also involved in this and are more likely to be victims than, for example, men. However, in the UK, we don't have too many detailed statistics on this at the minute, especially in the context which I'm going to be talking about. So throughout this video, I'm mostly just going to be saying men, women, blah, blah, blah. I just want you to know that that's mostly for ease and time savingness, so I don't have to repeat myself too much. But please know that within that, I am including certain non-binary people and certain transgender people, and I'm not purposely trying to forget them or leave them out or not mention them. Their experiences are incredibly valid and important to talk about. It's just for ease in this video, I'm just mostly going to be saying men and women to save a bit of time. It's also worth mentioning before we jump into the meat of this video that I am coming at this from a very UK-centric point of view because that is my personal experience, that is what I'm knowledgeable in, that's what I've lived through, that's what I know about. However, different people in different countries and cultures will have very different experiences to me. My experience isn't the only one, and other people's experiences are just as valid and important, and you shouldn't discount someone's experiences just because it's different from your own. When we talk about women being victims of violence, assault, harassment, anything, especially on the street, especially in public, especially at night, it's not just happening in the UK, it's not just happening in the US, it happens everywhere. And some places will be more dangerous than others, some people will experience it differently to others, and it's important to bear that in mind before you go making sweeping statements about, well, women do this, or women do this, or men do that. Do you know what I mean? Today, mostly, I want to talk about violence and harassment against women that happens in public on the streets, mostly at night, but not always. Hundreds, thousands of women every year are harassed, assaulted, raped, murdered by literal strangers. And while it's easy to say that, well, most rapes happen by someone you know, not all of them do. And it is a massive issue with the ones that do occur by strangers. And it's not just full-on rape or full-on murder that's the issue. It's people being touched inappropriately. It's people being assaulted. It's people being catcalled. It's people being made to feel scared and uncomfortable in what should be their own space. Despite how people like to pull out lines like, but some crimes are committed by women. Like, that's not what's relevant to this particular conversation. You're muddying the waters. No one is saying women don't commit crimes. What we are saying is, if you look at the statistics, and I'll leave a link to the UK Gov's stats website below so you can go and check out whatever you want. Violent and sexual crimes are overwhelmingly committed by men. And I don't just mean it's like a 51 to 49% split. I mean overwhelmingly committed by men. And then when we consider murders, rapes, violent attacks, and sexual harassment against women in public perpetrated by strangers, almost every case there is committed by a man. I mean, sure, all kinds of people commit all kinds of crimes, but honestly, the chance of a random woman on the street being attacked or harassed by a random man on the street is so disgustingly high that it's no wonder so many of us are terrified to go out alone. What's kind of recently kickstarted this conversation in the UK is the absolutely heartbreaking case of Sarah Everard, which hits a little too close to home for me because she was a young woman, similar age to me, living in London, who just happened to be walking home alone one night, and a week later her remains were found in a woodland in Kent. And it's heartbreaking, it's terrifying, because she could have been absolutely any one of us. I know I live in Leeds now and not London, but I was there for 4 years, so, you know, these things still, they can happen anywhere. The thing is, she did everything she was supposed to do. She wore the sensible shoes, she called her boyfriend, she walked in brightly lit areas, and she still ended up dead. I don't want to focus too much on this one particular case because, one, it's still very fresh, and honestly, I don't want people sitting here fighting over details of her case, trying to rip it apart when the family's still grieving. And I don't think it's fair to tear apart one particular tragedy looking for faults, because she doesn't deserve that, her family doesn't deserve that. And I think anyone who looks for reasons why she might have deserved it or anything disgusting like that, they're just awful human beings. And that's why I don't want to focus too much on one particular case, because while that's what sparked this conversation, it's long overdue, because it's by no means a one-off case. It's one example of it, but this has happened to countless other women. And while not every woman has ended up dead, many have ended up hurt or terrified or physically or emotionally scarred. There's just a lot, you know. I think nearly every woman and non-binary person I personally know has feared for their safety while walking alone at some point, especially at night. Nearly every woman and non-binary person who's sent me a message about this stuff, with the exception of one, has said something like this has happened to them. The positive that we can take away from this is that we're finally starting to have real conversations about this now, about why women feel unsafe, what is causing this, and what men and other people can do to make women feel safer, to make people feel safer, to stop other people being hurt. So many people now are actually finally starting to listen and learn, and it's amazing. I've had so many great messages from you guys over the last few days, either incredibly brave people sharing their stories and telling me what they experienced, or some incredible men reaching out and saying, damn, I didn't think of it like this before, I'm going to change my behavior in this way, or hey, I didn't realize maybe this was intimidating, what can I do to change this? They're exactly the sort of responses that we want and that I applaud and that are fantastic and that are amazing. And then there's a very loud, very vocal minority who are incredibly disappointing. This minority are the kinds of people who do post with the hashtag #NotAllMen and tell me that they're offended by me posting about women being scared to go out alone, telling me that it's hurt their feelings that I would dare say anything about how some men need to change their behavior. I'm like, I don't care if I've hurt your feelings. I'd rather your feelings are hurt than another woman physically gets hurt. And now I can't even believe I have to say this, but I think it should be made very, very clear. Of course, not all men hurt women. No one is saying that. And following on from this, not all men want to hurt women. Not all men have the intention of hurting women. Not all men want to scare women. Not all men will think they're scaring women. That's obvious. No one's saying that. No one is saying all men are rapists, all men are murderers, all men are violent, whatever. No one is saying that. Not a single reasonable person. And if they are, then fine, critique that. But for the most part, the people saying not all men in response to these kinds of conversations are completely taking everything out of context. They're twisting it for the sake of their own agenda. But while not all men are violent, the fact is that most women have been hurt or harassed or violated in some way, and in nearly every single case, the perpetrator has been a man. So how is it surprising that women, alone in public, fear most men they come across? It's not all men, but it could be any man. I've seen really great analogies online trying to explain this, like not all ticks carry Lyme disease, but we still try and avoid all ticks. Not all wasps will sting you, but you don't want to walk into a room full of wasps. If a bowl of M&Ms has one poison sweet in there, you're not going to sit there and eat the whole bowl, are you? And so while they're not perfect analogies, as this guy likes to point out, they do get the point across. And I think maybe instead of sitting there and picking faults with analogies, you should realize what they're trying to tell you. And that is that we don't know who the dangerous men are. We can't tell by looking at you if you're dangerous or not. We can only kind of guess based on your behavior. And so if your behavior is mimicking that of men who do want to hurt us, we are going to be scared. And it's not up to a woman to just decide not to be scared, because you can't do that, because that's how you end up dead. It's up to the men to change their behavior. If you don't want to hurt a woman, don't act like you do. Make simple changes to make sure the women around you feel safe. It's as simple as that. I'm going to say this again, I'm going to say over and over. No one is saying all men hurt women, but we are saying any man that we meet could be dangerous, and we don't know which ones they are. When we're alone anywhere and we're approached by a stranger, that can be terrifying. But even more so when it's a man, because don't try and logic your way out of this. Don't tell women what she should be feeling. It just is true. Men approaching women on their own, especially at night, is terrifying. Men are statistically more likely to hurt us. Men are physically more capable of hurting us. 97% of women have had bad experiences with men harassing or assaulting them. Why wouldn't we be scared of a man we know nothing about? Mostly what we're asking for with this entire movement and conversation is for men to be a little more aware of how women, particularly strangers, feel around them and interpret their actions. What you might consider a perfectly innocent action of, running down a street, a woman may interpret as, this is a man chasing her, she's gonna die any second now. And what we're saying is, please just be a little more considerate of how your actions are perceived and just be more aware not to scare women. If you're a man who isn't actually looking to hurt or scare or harass a woman, then being asked to make minor changes to your behaviour shouldn't bother you at all. Mostly what people are asking for is for men to educate themselves, to not catcall women, to not approach or try and strike up a conversation with random women that they see on the street, especially if that woman is alone and especially if it's at night. To give women walking alone, especially at night, plenty of space, which means keeping your distance, don't directly follow them, change your route slightly if possible, cross to the other side of the street away from them, and please don't sit there and say, this is too much, why are you asking this of men? Because this is exactly what women have been told to do for our own safety for years now, for decades, and it doesn't work for us. Women still end up killed. We want men to stop with the inappropriate jokes and conversation that normalise rape and harassment. We want men to step in if you see women being harassed by another man. Don't just put your head down and get on with it. Don't just think, oh, well, that's their problem, it's a domestic. No, you step in, you say something, you help that vulnerable person. It's little things like this. That's all we're asking for. We're not saying if you're a man, you must be a rapist/attacker/harasser. We're actually saying, to show us you're not a man who wants to rape, attack, or harass us, could you please make these tiny changes to make us feel a little safer, please? And if you're not actually looking to rape, attack, or harass a woman, then it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't be that difficult to just, cross the road, keep a few steps back, not speak to a stranger. Like I say, women have been doing this for decades. It's not difficult. To all these men messaging me who say they feel hurt or targeted by this, I just need to ask you, is your need to walk 3 steps behind a woman for 20 minutes more important than a woman's need to feel safe? Is your need to keep your head down and not get involved when you see a man grabbing a woman in public more important than that woman's right not to be raped? Is your need to, shout, nice legs, babe, really more important than that woman's need to feel safe and secure and like she's not going to die on the way to Tesco? And if you answered no to all of those questions, then great, fantastic, you're on the right track. Keep going. And if you also answered no to those questions, then I think we're on the same page and there's no need for you to be shouting, not all men anymore, because you're just making yourself look stupid at this point. But if you answered yes to one or all of those questions, then you may be a douchebag who needs immediate counselling and shouldn't be allowed out of the house alone for ever. When I started posting about this stuff on Instagram, I had a few men reach out to me in shock and disgust and confusion because, I told them don't approach lone women in public. Lots of the responses I got included, well, I guess I'll die alone now, and how will I ever get a date? To which I have to say I'd rather you would die alone without a relationship than more women die needlessly at the hands of violent men. But maybe that's just me. Let's look at a few examples. This man asked me, I have a question, how do you respectfully ask someone out you don't know? I've talked to women and they don't want to be friends first because they feel like all their guy friends want to date them. So what would you say is the solution to this? I've never dated asked someone out before. I just want to know the best way to do something like that. To which I say, I don't mind questions like this. This man is definitely trying to make sure that he's learning and he doesn't want to make women feel unsafe. Great, brilliant, I applaud that. However, as I said to him, a woman walking alone in the street is not the start of some great romantic love story. Don't put your romantic or sexual desires above her safety. She's out there for a reason and it's probably not looking for a date. If you do want someone to date, do it in a setting where those kinds of interactions are expected and encouraged. For example, dating apps, certain bars and clubs, singles events. You don't have to approach random women on the street and risk making them feel scared and uncomfortable and intimidated. And the other thing is, if you do approach a random woman on the street, she might feel inclined to say yes because she doesn't want to anger you by saying no. It puts a lot of pressure on a woman. It's terrifying. But my response to this guy was, generally, if a woman is alone on the streets or in public, don't ask her out. Most women would rather be left alone. If she's in a group of friends, maybe in a bar or something, you could go over and try and make conversation and see if she's interested. But as a woman who likes to go out a lot by myself, it makes me super uncomfortable if a man approaches me in public. I'm usually there by myself for a reason. For example, I want to see a museum exhibit, I'm trying to shop, I'm on my way to meet someone, I want to enjoy a meal. I'm not there to find a boyfriend. And this is especially true for women alone at night. Just don't do it, leave them alone. If you want to date a complete stranger, try a dating app. But like I say, this guy, it was a genuine question. I'm cool with that, I'm cool with answering that kind of stuff. Unlike this next douchebag, who says, I guess I'll die alone then. I can do these things, but leave women alone in public spaces. Are we going with specifics? Do you not want us to talk to women? Does this apply to all women? What about work? What if a situation is going south? There's more, but I don't see how the vague answer of leave women alone in public places can help much. Oh well, I guess I'll die alone because I'm too busy leaving every woman alone. To which I told him he was clearly purposely being obtuse to cause problems. If you work with a woman, obviously you can talk to her. Maybe in a bar or club or social setting it's okay to talk to her. But if a woman's on her own, especially at night, it can be uncomfortable at best and terrifying at worst to have a random man approach you. Just don't do it. Like I say, there are certain situations where dating is encouraged. Singles events, dating apps, certain bars and clubs. Go there if you're looking for a relationship. Or speak to, your friends, have friends introduce you to other friends, speak to your colleagues, meet people that way organically. You don't need to approach random strangers in the street and be like, sup babe, nice legs. Because even if you are polite and nice or whatever, I've had men approach me in public before, and it's terrifying, and you feel the need to placate them and be polite and be nice, and if they ask you out, you're like, and you don't want to say no, because who knows how they're going to react? Are they going to get angry? Are they going to hurt you? Some men don't take rejection well. You feel like you have to say yes to them, and it's terrifying. I mean, I have my fair share of social issues and problems. There are plenty of things I don't understand when it comes to social interactions. There are plenty of social cues that I just miss or misinterpret or don't really get. But even I know that just don't approach lone women on the street isn't a complicated instruction to follow. Stop pretending it is. Another question that I got, which I think was a genuine one, was why wouldn't you say something if you're being made to be uncomfortable? I'm just curious, as if someone was doing something that made me have negative feelings, I would say something, which I think is very easy to ask as a man and kind of shows how little you have to think about compared to women when it comes to these kinds of social interactions. Because I wish it was that simple. I did point him to a post that I made earlier that read, how do you suggest a woman walking alone at night determines whether you're a rapist or not? If she ignores you, she could still get raped. Some men take offense to being ignored. If she looks at you, she could still get raped. Rapists don't look like one thing. If she talks to you, she could still get raped. Some men take any attention to mean she's interested in them and won't take no for an answer. The fact that there's nothing we can do in that split second to decide whether a man is a rapist or not, there is nothing we can do to stay safe if we've encountered the wrong man. Sure, not all men are rapists or murderers, but some are. If you're not, it's not up to us to figure it out. It's entirely up to you to prove it to us by giving us space and helping us keep safe. So the point I was trying to make is basically it's not a matter of turning around and saying something if you feel uncomfortable, because that could also get you killed. That could be what sets off a dangerous man, and you don't know which ones are dangerous. So to give a slightly more in-depth example, let me tell you a story of the 4 bears. Now, you're in this story, you, the person watching this video, and it doesn't matter who you are. You could be any kind of human, just exactly who you are right now. You're in this story, and the fact is, giant man-eating bears exist in this story, and they're all much, much, much bigger and stronger than you. Now, let's imagine you are walking through a dark forest, and you have to go this way to get home. There's no other option. This is it. So before you leave, you tell your friend exactly where you're going and what time you are expected home, and you tell them the route that you're taking, and you go through the forest. And your friend is there waiting for a phone call or a text when you get home to let them know you got back safe. But on the way, you are completely alone, and there's no other option for this. There's nothing you can do. There's no taxis or buses at this time. There's no other route. You have to go through the forest. And you know this forest is home to a few kinds of bear, at least 4, but maybe more. Probably more. There are some pink bears who won't do anything to hurt you. They won't interact with you. They'll just leave you be. Nothing at all good. But there's other kinds of bears as well. There's the giant man-eating red bear, who will attack instantly in response to any sound you make or anything you say. There are the giant purple bears that will attack anything they see move. And there are the giant blue bears who will attack anyone they see stand still for more than a moment. On your walk, you could encounter any, all, or none of these bears. And you don't know when or where they might show up. You don't know if you're going to encounter them. They're bears. You can't predict their movements. So you're walking alone through this forest and you hear something following you. And whatever it is close enough to attack. It's only a few paces behind you. And you know that this is probably a bear, and they are big enough that you would likely never win in a fight if they did decide to attack you. And sure, there might be a few outliers, there might be a few small bears, you might be quite strong for your species of human. I'm assuming you're human if you're watching this. But generally, about 90% of bears are bigger and stronger than you and could kill you if they wanted. So, what do? Alone, in a dark forest, with a giant bear. It could be a friendly pink bear, but you have no idea. You can't see it, you can't interact with it, and even if you could, let's be honest, it's a dark night. Pink, purple, red, they all look pretty similar. How do you really know if this is a man-eating bear just by glancing at it? So you have to think, what are you going to do? If you stop, you risk getting attacked by the blue bear that attacks anything that stops for a second. If you speak to it and ask them to identify themselves and say, hey mate, what kind of bear are you? If it's a red bear, you're dead. It's going to attack you and kill you. Or you can run and try and get away, but you might not be able to outrun it, and if it's a purple bear, you just triggered it even more. Either way, you're dead. You don't know what kind of bear that is, and any or all of your actions could get you killed any second. What do? The sensible thing isn't to be like, well, it's probably a pink bear, so I'm going to be fine, because that's how you end up dead. So at this point, your anxious brain kicks in, and you start thinking, and you're like, well, I've heard that pink bears, they're not interested in eating people. They're friendly. So if it was a pink bear, he wouldn't be following me so closely, right? He'd leave me alone. I mean, no bear follows you this far and this close for this long unless it's planning to eat you, right? So you just keep walking, you pick up your pace, and you try and get out of the forest as fast as you can. But at this point, you're terrified, petrified. You're almost certain you are going to get eaten. You've heard of humans being eaten in the forest before, and now you're like, crap, this is my turn. So you text a friend and you say that a bear is following you and you don't know what to do. But it doesn't help because your friend is so far away and they can't do anything. All it does is alert them that someone is following you. They can't do anything to help, so you could call the police. But again, the police won't get here in time. And what if the sound of you making that phone call to the police alerts the red bear that you're there and they attack you and eat you? Or what if you do manage to get out of the forest and you get to a bright area and he still keeps following you? There's no guarantee that just because you're out of the dark, he's going to stop. This bear might follow you home. This bear might try and get in your home. This bear might wait till you're asleep and break in the window and eat you in your own bed. You're terrified, you can barely think straight, and you get out your house keys and you hold them between your fingers in case the giant bear attacks, even though you might not do much, but you could maybe jab him in the eye, and you do this because you've been taught this in the mandatory self-defense classes that you, as a human, had to take. None of the other species in school had to take the class, just you humans. Behind you, you hear the bear make a noise, and it kind of sounds like a growl to you, and you can't tell what tone this is in because you're stressing out. Is it friendly? Is it jokey? Is it threatening? Is it sinister? Is he trying to play it off as a joke, but actually it's a threat? You don't know. You can't tell. So you panic, and then anything could happen. Maybe you get away. Maybe you get home safe. Maybe the bear was a pink fluffy bear all along. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the bear catches up to you and he just laughs at you. Maybe the bear catches up to you and he eats you. Maybe the bear catches up to you and he just hurts you and throws you around a bit. You don't know. If you do get home and you're safe, you think to yourself, well, okay, it was a pink bear. All right. Maybe the pink bear had no intention of hurting you. But how are you to know? It wasn't silly of you to be scared because you didn't know. Maybe the bear was just happening to go down the same route as you. You know, he wanted a little out into the late night honey emporium on your street and he just happened to follow you home. But how were you to know? You don't know his intentions. It doesn't matter. The fact is, his actions, whether he was a good bear or a bad bear, the fact he followed you so closely, he was taking the same route, the fact he shouted things at you, you didn't know what kind of bear he was, and his actions scared you. Because let's be honest, he didn't need to follow you that closely. He probably didn't even need to take the same route as you. He could have easily crossed over the road in the forest to prove to you that he wasn't threatening, that he wasn't going to eat you. He didn't have to shout things at you. He could have made sure that his appearance was very, very clear to you and not hidden, very visible. He could have stayed out of the shadows. He could have not shouted things at you. There are lots of things this bear could have done to make you feel safer, and he didn't. But here's where the problem lies with some pink bears. Because if you say this to the pink bears, or if you ever see a pink bear and he notices how scared you are of him, or if you ever publicly say, hey, pink bears, this is what you can do to make me feel safer in the forest, some of those pink bears will immediately get defensive. Some of those pink bears will take personal offense to this. They will start to mock your feelings. They'll start to doubt your feelings. Because look at him. He's just a pink bear. He's not going to hurt you. You should know that. He's not like the other bears. It's horrible of you. It's so mean to not give him the benefit of the doubt. Look at him. He's pink. It doesn't matter if assuming he was pink would have put you in more danger. You should have just done it because now you've done the worst thing in the world and you've hurt his feelings. That's the worst thing anyone can ever do to anyone. Poor pink bears. And so he goes home and he goes on Facebook and Instagram and Reddit and Twitter and he starts posting, not all bears, people. Hashtag not all bears. I genuinely don't think men realize how easy they have some things. Not just, mostly feeling safe when they go out anywhere alone, but things as well, like dating someone new, for example. So those people who message me, their worries were, oh, what if I don't get a date? What if I end up alone? What if I stay single? Whereas a woman's worries when it comes to dating is, if I go on this date, what if I end up dead? What if I end up raped? I've literally been on dates with men who, when I've asked them, are your housemates expecting you home at any time or whatever, they'll literally be like, nah, no one knows I'm here. Because men can do that. Men don't have to think about that kind of thing. Whereas for me, as a woman, I have to Google every guy that I go on a date with. I now run his name through, Claire's Law checks to make sure he's not an abuser. I send photos of him and literally every detail I know of him to my friends to be like, this is who I'm going on a date with, this is where I'm going, this is the time. I text my friends before I set off. I text my friends when I arrive. I text them an hour into the date. I text them before I head home. I text them when I get home. And it doesn't stop until you're back safe alone in the house. You constantly check in with another person because that's the only way you feel safe. And then, of course, while you're doing all this, you have to contend with the whole, well, is he going to get mad at me if I'm texting in front of him? Is this going to seem rude? I don't know. And even if you sit there and explain to him, sorry, just telling my friend I got here safe, are they going to get offended? Are they going to take offense to this and be like, what, you think I'm dangerous? Because some men do that. And you have to be like, well, yes, you could be. And men, like these not all men will take offense to that for some reason. The decent men don't. They're like, yeah, cool, I understand that. You do it. But the ones that take offense to it, that's a bit scary because why are you offended? Why are you trying to guilt me into not telling my friends where I am? That's a huge red flag. That says to me, you want to hurt me. You're trying to stop me telling my friends where I am so you can do something to me. Huge red flag. As the messages I've received in the last few days show, some men take great offense to women taking steps to ensure their own safety, And actually, I use the term safety very, very loosely there because when it comes to things like dating, just telling your friends who you're going on a date with, texting them to tell you where you are, not really keeping you safe, is it? It's not really doing anything to prevent anything happening to you. It's just making sure that someone knows who you're with, so when something bad does happen to you, they know who to point the police to. It's not stopping you getting killed, it's just saying we might have an idea who killed you. Another thing I'm absolutely sick of hearing and seeing, especially online, are jokes about how certain women don't have to worry about being harassed or raped or killed, or how 97% seems too high because not that many women are hot. Not believing a woman's story of assault or harassment because they're, in your opinion, not hot enough is disgusting. It's repulsive. Because When men do that to women, when men shout abusive things, when they harass women, when they touch them inappropriately, when they assault them, when they rape them, when they kill them, it's not a sexual thing. It's not oh, I'm going to go out and find the hottest girl I can find just so I can rape her tonight. It's not about that. It's about power and control and coercion. They're not looking for the hottest woman they can find. They're looking for the person who, in that split second, is the most vulnerable person they can find. It's about control. And sadly, when it comes to men and men have the physical advantage, most women are vulnerable to them. Most women look weak next to them, and that's why so many women have these horror stories. I guess what kind of prompted all this was the other night when I reposted a series of images on Instagram, and the last one ended with telling people who use not all men, like the hashtag, to like shut the F up or something. Like it was an image I reposted, and I got so many little boys mad at me personally for reposting that. Like this guy who said, "But you don't have to be rude to men just because a portion of us are pieces of poop. That post you put on your story actually kind of hurt my feelings. I've walked close to many women with no intentions of harming them whatsoever." I'm like, I'm sorry, but even though you have no intentions, how do those women know? The fact that you've done that means you're part of the problem. You're scaring women, whether it was your intention or not. I'm sorry if it hurts your feelings to say that, but simple, change your behaviour. I literally said to him, I'm sure you don't have those intentions, but how is that woman you walk close to supposed to know that? I'd rather hurt a man's feelings than sit in silence as women continue to live in fear. If you're in a room with 10 identical looking bugs and one's poisonous enough to kill you, you don't sit around while they all crawl all over you, because it's not like all of them will kill you. His response was absolutely ridiculous too, because it just shows he has an absolute blatant misunderstanding of the issue, and he turned it round to say, women can rape too, though usually they choose children. What's your point? That doesn't mean you're not scaring a woman when you walk 3 steps behind her in a dark alley. One bad thing doesn't negate the other bad thing, you know? So I said women can rape, women do rape, they're a piece of crap too, but I've never been scared by a woman following me home at night. I've never had to stay in a pub after closing and be escorted to an Uber by a bartender because a woman didn't understand I wasn't interested. A woman wasn't waiting for me outside the pub to leave. A woman didn't try and get in the taxi with me and have to be warned off by my driver. I've never had to run into a public space because a woman shouted sexual things at me on a dark street. I've never had a woman hold me down and try and kiss me while I was crying and saying no. I've never had a woman be strong enough to physically hold me down and touch me in ways I didn't want, and a woman has never made me feel scared for my life by her physical presence. Men have done that. That's why women are scared of men. He didn't respond to that. And when I posted later saying women not being killed is more important than a man's feelings, I followed it up by saying, us all staying silent and thinking, well, not all men, and assuming the best of people is how women get killed, raped, and assaulted. I can't even count how many women, including myself, have put ourselves in uncomfortable and unsafe situations because we were scared to hurt a man's feelings, and that's not okay. And I fully stand by that. But apparently, that statement hurt his feelings. Oh, I'm very mad today. I'm sorry. And then, in response to this, even though I totally didn't hurt this man's feelings, he decided to remind me that walking home alone in the night poses different dangers to all of us. And he's absolutely right, because sometimes there's a danger on the street when a wild panther is loose and roaming the streets, and therefore we should pay as much attention to wild panthers roaming the streets as we do to men being predators. Panthers are also a threat. Men are a more common threat. But because of the world we live in and not all men, we should treat panthers and men with equal amounts of fear. It doesn't work that way. This reminds me of all the people who are offended by like the Black Lives Matter stuff and being like, well, everyone faces discrimination to some extent. It's like, yes, they do, and that's bad. Doesn't mean racism doesn't exist. Or the people who were offended when people were calling out, like saying, oh, well, as a white person, you can do X, Y, and Z to help this. People were offended by that. Instead of being all, not all white people. If you're not racist yourself, there's nothing to be offended by. The statement, I hate racists, shouldn't offend you unless you're a racist. I don't know about anyone else, but I was never once offended by a post saying something like, this is how white people can help stop racism or something like that, because as an anti-racist white person myself, my goal is literally to help and to fight racism and, you know, for it not to be an issue anymore. That's what I want. There's nothing to be offended by posts that help everyone achieve that goal. I don't have to be part of the problem in by which I mean I don't have to be racist, to be part of the solution, which is making sure everyone's anti-racist. Same thing here. Take all of that, put it into this context. If me saying, shut up if you say not all men because you're missing the point and contributing to a harmful narrative offends you, then maybe it's because you're doing the harmful thing that I just mentioned. And in that case, I don't care if I hurt your feelings. That's fine. I'd rather I hurt your feelings than you continue to make women feel unsafe. Just like I don't care if I hurt an anti-masker's feelings by telling them to put on a mask. I don't care if I hurt a child molester's feelings by telling them to stay away from children. If me telling you not to do something that hurts other people hurts your feelings, then I will hurt your feelings. I would rather that than other people get actually physically hurt, you know? And then, of course, there were just a few people who revealed to me that they were absolute disgusting pieces of garbage, trash, poop. Like this guy who replied, "That's fair. Don't know which are the lying, cheating gutter sluts. Does that mean it's safe to call all women that?" For one, I'm going to say it again. No one is calling all men rapists or assaulters or harassers. No one is saying that. No one. And two, I would rather be a gutter slut than be raped. So there's that. And three, I don't know about you guys, but I don't think this man is going to end up dead if a woman approaches him in the street on a dark night and ends up to be a lying cheater. I don't think he will, so it's not really the same, is it? If he's walking down a dark street at night and a woman comes up to him and there's a 50-50 chance that she's a cheater in a relationship, he's still going to get home safe at the end of the night. The same thing cannot be said for a woman being followed by a man down a dark street at night. So in conclusion, no one is calling all men rapists, but women are saying they're afraid of many men, whether they're dangerous or not, because life. If you're not actually a dangerous man and you do care about being a decent human being, then there are a few small changes you can make your behavior to make women feel safe. And doing these things actually shows them that you're not a rapist / attacker / harasser. So I don't see why anyone would be offended by being asked to do them. If you've never attacked, harassed or raped a woman, then you're not a direct part of the problem, but you can be a direct part of the solution. And if after all this you still managed to miss the point and I shouted not all men, and you're going to tell me that, oh, blah 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 blah, feminazi, or blah 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 blah, I used to like your content until this, I'll be unsubscribing, then please do, because you're not welcome here. If you don't think that it's fair to ask you to cross the street so you don't scare a woman, or not talk to a woman so you don't terrify her, if you don't think it's fair of me to ask you not to catcall or harass or touch women without their permission, then that's fine. You're not welcome here. We'll be better off without you. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's my rant over. There's probably a lot that I've missed and not touched on, but this is something that I feel very strongly about. Yeah, this was an emotional one. I definitely got rantier than I expected to, but this is something that I care about and that I'm passionate about and that I'm sick of seeing people be hurt for. And I think it's important to talk about. So with that, let me know your non-sexist thoughts down in the comments below. If you are going to sit here and shout, not all men, then like I say, you're missing the point. Go away. Educate yourself and then come back when you're going to be reasonable. But until then, bleh. And to everyone else, thank you to everyone who's been brave enough to share your stories and experiences with me. If you're brave enough, tell people what you've been through. Like, please do share it in the comments if you want, because it's important that we talk about these things and that we kind of show people how common this is and how that's not okay. I think a lot of men would be horrified by some of the stuff women have gone through. I know when I've spoken to like my male friends about this before, they've always been quite shocked by how much women go through and what's happened to us, and they're like, oh god, we didn't even realize that this was happening to you, or stuff like that. So talking about it is really, really important because it educates people and it shows them that there is a problem. The more we stay silent, the more it's pushed to the side and ignored and not taken seriously. And it's up to us to speak out about what's happened and help try and educate people so it doesn't happen anymore. A lot of people as well come back with arguments like, well, evil exists. Yes, there are bad people in the world. There are evil people. Awful stuff is always going to happen, but you don't have to contribute to it. You don't have to be a part of it. Like I say, just because you're not out there actually raping women, it doesn't mean you can't do your bit to help women feel safe and secure and protected. That's what you should be doing. And if you sit by silently and let the bad stuff happen, then you are part of the problem. Anyway, thank you for watching today. Appreciate you a lot. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe. That would be great. Shameless self-promotion to end. I'll see you again soon.